Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis. Although most of the cars I source are between £1,000 and £5,000, very often I've been asked to show something a little bit cheaper on the channel, and so I came up with No Budget Reviews, the series where we look at cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and you can enjoy driving. We don't film this in an expensive manner, we don't use separate microphones, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't even use a DSLR, but we do have a lot of fun.
You know, viewers, sometimes I get to test iconic cars from old British TV series, and this is one of those occasions. This is a 1987 Rover 213S, and it's in the same colour, and it looks very similar to the model that was used in Keeping Up Appearances. Now, it's not exactly the same because they used two of these. One was a 216S and one was a 216SE EFI. So we're not exactly the same, but I mean, it looks very similar, and it's actually in really good condition. This is owned by Patrick, who owns all sorts of other interesting Austin Rover era cars, some of which you've probably already seen on the channel. This is a post facelift, what's called the SD3 version of the Rover 200, which is the first type. It sounds similar to the SD1 because the car was actually co-developed by British Leyland and Honda, so it has an old British Leyland development code on it. I love the wheel trims with the Rover shield on them, which look like sort of similar to the 800 of the era, the very early ones. And this Moonraker blue paintwork looks brilliant. The door handles are very similar to an R8, although because of the profile of the door, I don't think they're interchangeable or anything. Same locking knobs as on Montego and Maestro. Same door latch as on an R8, the later 200s and 400s, and similar indicator and wiper stalks, although not exactly the same. And if this was a car further up the range, I think we'd see a very similar electric mirror switch as well. Despite this being just one up from the base model, there was just one called the 213. It's not badly equipped, really. I mean, we don't have any wood or anything in here. You can see where the wood would be. Terrible joke. And we have the sort of start of the famous Rover R8 T-shelf, as loved by Mr. Richardson from the Furious Driving channel. Still a choke on this. It's a 1.3 Honda engine in this car, developing 70 horsepower. 5-speed Honda gearbox in this as well. There was a 3-speed automatic available, and on the 1.6 engine, a 4-speed automatic. I love this little hazard light switch. I just like hazard light switches at the top of the steering column. I'm a very strange person, I know, but that's what I like. Also, the heat and ventilation controls are very well placed for the driver, although the steering wheel rim does obscure them somewhat, so we go from this angle. Places to store my Ssanyon keys, and a cassette player with tape deck storage solutions. I don't know what's in here. Ooh, ooh, oh! If you had boxes on your tapes, you'd be able to put them in like that. Isn't that fantastic, viewers? Brilliant. I suppose if you wanted to, you could put a different stereo in there, but that's probably the original one. It's a Philips one, so I think it is. Digital clock in here, but unfortunately that doesn't need to work anymore. And just even the curve of this sort of dashboard like this, the open area that reminds you so much of the R8s I've had in my time. I've had two of them. Fog light switches down here, it's really small. I presume the front fogs would be there. And the reheated window switch is there, and it's tiny. I don't know why it's so tiny. Strange. Through for ventilation, and of course those vents are quite separate from the other ventilation controls. Rotary knob, very mid-80s Japanese, of course, this being very closely related to the Honda Ballard of the time, which was also built on the Longbridge production line, I think. I can't remember. Yes, I think they were built in Longbridge rather than Cowley. I could be wrong. And then they were taken to Swindon to be finished off by Honda. But very similar car, and of course that's in One-Footed McGrave, similar type of car, sort of colour. This is a graph paper effect on the instruments, which again look very nascent R8 for some reason. It's not a surprise. It's very 1980s, and I do like it. You could get a sunroof in some of these. Actually, the headlining in this car is only slightly sagging. I mean, it could be a lot worse. You know, I've had far worse, in Rovers I've owned of various eras. Glove box, probably get your secret mission documents in there, I think. Lots of spare bulbs, and my phone's in there too. My other phone. Ooh, that made quite a noise. Let's try that again. Why am I getting so excited about silly things, viewers? Sensible things, though, are the fact we've got a tilt steering wheel in here, which is very good. It wasn't common, particularly at the time, to have that. Let's see if I can actually fit in the back. That might be a problem, because I've heard the rear legroom in these cars is not very good. With the Montego and the Maestro, they are quite well packaged for cars of their era. Let's just see if this is as well. Well, it's not as bad as I remember. I remember this being terrible. Of course, if you're in my driving position, then it is pretty bad. But with the seat in this position for the passenger, it's actually okay. I do have some legroom. The feet go underneath the seat, and if this headlining wasn't sagging, which it is slightly here, I'd actually clear it. So it's not too bad. We don't have an armrest in the middle, this being bottom of the range, but there is a seat belt for a child seat here. And I remember these centre belts, and there we are, it says that down there. And the latches, which are almost impossible to undo sometimes, they are a pain in the bottom. Oh, it's because that whole thing has not cooperated. Let's just leave that there, shall we, and not say any more about it. Same locking knobs as a Maestro and Montego. These interior door handles, which I gather I often do fall off. This is a shame. And then these, which look like they're kind of out of the Rover Metro or something. Well, I bet they might not be, but they look like it. And the wood would be there if we were in a high spec model, but we're not. So there we go. Really should have thought about impressing the neighbours with my Vitesse 1.6 EFI. And here we have the same boot and fuel filler cap releases as in my Rover 45 V6. Brilliant. Does that actually work? No. Right, viewers, let's get the key. Right, the key still works. Very oddly shaped boot. I mean, it's this sort of wheel arch intrusion here. The floor is quite uneven, but I don't think you can fold the seats either. They look like they're fixed, so that's maybe something to consider. I mean, you could just, I don't know, buy a Maestro if that's a worry for you. That's got a huge boot. Full-size spare under here somewhere, but it's pretty big actually. One thing that tells me this is a facelifted car is that this sill is much lower than on the pre-facelift ones, and the pre-facelift one, it came up to about here. So that's one thing they changed for the facelift, which is a very sensible idea, because that was a very narrow opening. And there we go. You fit all your stuff in there for society dinner parties or whatever you need. Right, let's have a look at the engine. One really annoying thing about this car, and this is common with a lot of co-developed Rover and Honda models, is that when you open and close the bonnet, the wipers seem to foul it for some reason. I think this arm has got a bit bent at some stage, and that's why it's doing it. So here we are. It's a 12 valve 1.3 litre Honda engine, which develops 70 horsepower. It's called the EV2. I seem to remember it's similar to the one in the Triumph Acclaim. But yes, again, it looks reasonably easy to work on. There's not sort of too much in here really compared to modern cars. It's not the biggest engine bay, and I think the S series 1.6, the other engine option in here, either developing 85 or 103 horsepower, depending on whether you got the fuel injection or not. would be a bit more difficult to get. But look, there's the oil filter back there. You can see it. Gearbox, I think, is the other end of the engine, because these Honda engines turn a complete opposite way from most of the other engines, which includes the D series, which was put into the R8 after this and continued for a long time. I think that was discontinued in the Honda Civic in the mid 2000s actually. But yes, it's pretty great really. It's got a little bit of a cam cover gasket leak, but they all did that at the time. It's so many engines do that. Right, I think it's time to go for a drive, viewers, and press for neighbours. Well, viewers, if my name was Mr. Bouquet, I think I would be impressing the neighbours with this smooth driving experience of my Rover 213. It actually feels very easy to drive for a car of this era. It's not like it's not like a Mark III Escort or something like that. It reminds me more of the Nissan Sunny and 13, which of course it did share the market for a while. No power steering in one of these, but actually it's not too bad. It's just manoeuvring that's a little bit heavy. The gearbox is really easy, typical Honda style, very easy. Engine's quite torquey. It reminds me very much of the D series, which was the engine that replaced it. Of course, if you really want some speed, and you can go for the 216, particularly the EFI that had over 100 horsepower, which probably one of these would make it feel quite fast. If you got the Vitesse, and you'd be, the king of modest transport. But yeah, even in this model like this, I prefer, to be honest, the Van den Pla version of one of these. The trim levels in one of these were just a base model like 213, but an S like this, SE, top of the range initially was the Van den Pla, but when the 216 came in a little bit later on, I think the 213 was the only engine available initially. Then there was the test model that had the EFI, a bit more power, as well as the Van den Pla was shifted up from being a 213 to a 216, and the 213 Van den Plas are very rare now. So there was also 3-speed automatic available on the 213s, Honda-matic. Whether that's 2 or 3-speed gearbox, that's actually open for debate. I'll just call it a 3-speed. And on the 1.6 models, there was also a 4-speed automatic gearbox available. But I like this Honda 5-speed. I really like it. It feels just like all the other Honda gearboxes I've driven, which is great. There were also some special editions. There was a Sprint that was, I think, about 87, 88, and then right at the end there were SX and EX special editions, some of which continued into 1990 if stocks were still available whilst the R8 had already come out. It's just a very easy car to drive. It does lead a bit in the corners, but so does an R8. I've owned 2 of those, and they do. But I can see how somebody would go straight into the showroom after buying one of these and having kind of reliable service for a little while, and they'd just buy an R8 straight away because it would seem really familiar to them. Particularly if they wanted a Honda engine one, a 216, that'd be great. I do very much enjoy this car, viewers. I've always wanted to drive one because my grandfather actually owned one. My paternal grandfather had loads of Maestros. My maternal grandfather, who was Polish, had lots and lots of other random cars, many Metros and Fiestas, but he also had one of these. I think it was a 216 Auto, but it's so long ago. We're talking about 1986 when I was 3 years old, so I can't really remember that well, I'm sorry. But I can see why he liked this car. I think it's wonderful. Just this little auto smart balancing thing is a bit annoying, but there we go. just like the fact that actually at the time this car would have been really easy to drive and would have seemed quite luxurious and well made, particularly if you had one of the higher trim levels of the sort of wood bits and electric windows, and I think you also got a sunroof on the post facelift cars like this one if you went up, you know, up a few trim levels. But yes, it feels very, very compact now, and these three thin little pillars are really, really good for visibility. Don't need sort of parking sensors or reversing camera or anything like that on this. The only thing is I've noticed this really annoying vibration at about kind of 3,000 RPM, and it's slightly marring my Rover 213 experience, but not enough to make me not enjoy myself. And I'm so grateful after probably 35 years to have actually had a chance to drive one of these. And I like the sort of accurate steering and the gearbox. It's just typical Honda features. Went right the way through for many years, and you know, the Civics, of which this is a very close relation to a Civic, were known for that for years. So I can see why claim owners went straight to buy one of these, and why owners of these went straight to buy an R8, because they share this sort of family lineage and they are just excellent little cars. The only problem really is these rusted like no one's business. They were one of the worst cars for rust of their time. And that's saying something, because most modest cars of the mid-80s had terrible rust problems. And, you know, you can name virtually any make and that'll be the case. Even sort of Volkswagen later on were like that. So there aren't that many of these around, but can you buy one of these in good condition at MOT for under £1,000? Why, yes you can. Patrick didn't even pay £1,000 for this one, and this is actually in really nice condition. So for some reason the Maestros and the Montegos are getting to be now quite expensive for some of the variants, particularly the nice ones, and these haven't really gone up that much. And if you found like a nice 216 EF5 Antemplar or something like that, they might be worth a bit more, but they're still surprisingly affordable if you can find one that hasn't disintegrated. And we know from a car that I filmed at the BL Autumn Rally in Milton Keynes last year, Suzuki Liana. No, it wasn't Suzuki Liana, it was a 216S, and that had done over 400,000 miles. I mean, it's full of filler and things like that, but it's still around. And actually I think that appeared at the BMC Leyland show last weekend, so you'll see it in one of those videos. But yes, it's a fantastic car, and I can see might be where you buy one of these just to impress the neighbours. Well, Richard, should you buy a Rover SD3? Well, I'm surprised these cars actually aren't more expensive and don't have more of a following. I mean, they are possibly iconic in the wrong way, but I really like this car. It's very easy to drive for a car of the era. It feels quite well made, and there's just something about the character of these that I really like. The styling looks a little bit like something shrunken in the wash to me, but then again, you know, that was sort of the idea of people trading down from larger cars into something like this. And I totally understand why Austin Rover marketed this car at the same time as the Maestro and the Montego, because they have a slightly different feel to them. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Thank you for just enjoying the experience with me. Thank you to Patrick for supplying this car. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click notifications to be informed of all new videos, and social media links are down below. Thank you.